The story starts with a weak boy named Tomatsu running from something. He stops in an alley to take a breath, but sees a girl standing behind him and runs again. The girl gets to him and tries to sell an art that is worth 16,000 yen. After a conversation between them, he tells her that he will buy her art piece on one condition. She questions the condition. He asks her to join the battle with him and tells a fantasy novel story from his childhood. The girl leaves. From that point onward, he stops for a drink. His sister Nawaka comes there. They are both fixated on Japanese culture. Unexpectedly, Nawaka goes crazy and advises the unfortunate weak boy Tomatsu to check the sky out. The two of them see a young lady on the sky. She lands on the surface. Tomatsu and Nawaka go there. Tomatsu asks her if she is okay. Suddenly a group of monsters attacks her. She fights the monsters and defeats the girl by removing her clothes in the sunlight. Suddenly Akihabara vigilantes show up and tells the floating girl to stop her performance on the road. The floating girl leaves the place while the Akihabara vigilante talking. Tomatsu and Nawaka think of this as a performance. After that, Nawaka gets happy after buying her favorite manga. But Tomatsu gets pissed because they didn't have his manga. Nawaka tells Tomatsu about the bugged ones. They transform into monsters, gain superhuman strength and attack humans like zombies. Nawaka then asks Tomatsu to go to a cafe with her, which he rejects. Then he leaves Nawaka and goes to shop to buy a rare piece of action figure. But a girl named Arisa picks up the sticker at the same time as him. He tries to get the action figure from her, but complains that she is strong. He gets distracted looking at her boobs. Arisa pulls the action figure from him. He then begins to talk to her and tries to manipulate her by calling her his friend. He convinces her and tries to take the action figure from her. Suddenly they hear something. The floating girl with a baseball bat comes in and calls Arisa bugged one and begins to attack her. Arisa dodges her attacks. The floating girl with a baseball bat breaks some of the action figures. Arisa gets mad and beats up the floating girl. The floating girl pushes Arisa out of the building. Arisa runs away from the floating girl. She chases her. Tomatsu hears two guys talking about an attack on the cafe. Tomatsu remembers Nawaka asking him to go to the cafe with her. He runs to the cafe building and goes inside the room and sees a group of people there. He asks them about his sister. They begin to attack him. Suddenly the floating girl with a baseball bat removes their clothes and defeats them. The floating girl tells Tomatsu that he's in her way. Tomatsu tells her that he came for his sister and sees Nawaka lying on the ground. He runs towards her. But suddenly a bugged monster attacks him with a spoon. The floating girl gets the stab for him and saves him. She attacks the bugged one. Suddenly, Arisa shows up there. He begins to talk to her and asks her about her new outfit. Arisa tells him that the floating girl ripped her clothes. She then asks Tomatsu, is Nawaka his girlfriend? Nawaka begins to talk in her sleep and tells her that Tomatsu is a loner and he has only a few friends. Tomatsu gets pissed and asks Arisa to take his sister to a safe place. And he decides to go after the floating girl and tells a line from an anime. Arisa remembers the line from the anime and tells Tomatsu is cool and he can get any girl he wants. Tomatsu says that the line is from his novel and goes after the floating girl. The floating girl gets beat up by the bugged monster gang and the gang members holds and begin to remove her clothes. The gang leader starts to punch the floating girl and Tomatsu comes in with the fire extinguisher, but the monster kicks him. And the gang leader goes to kill the floating girl with a broken baseball bat. Suddenly Tomatsu appears in front of her and takes the stab. The floating girl punches a hole through the ground and escapes from the place with Tomatsu. Tomatsu asks her to tell his sister before finishing the sentence he dies. The floating girl feels guilty for letting him die. And she transforms him into a high-level bugged one by kissing him. Tomatsu wakes up. The bugged one gang shows up there. The spoon girl from before launches to kill the floating girl. But Tomatsu stops the spoon attack with his fingers and removes the spoon girl's clothes. The girl dies. Tomatsu asks the floating girl if he removes their clothes they die. She says yes. He begins to remove their clothes, but the gang leader, bugged one, throws him outside the building. He then removes their clothes and defeats them. And finally he defeats the gang leader by removing her clothes. The floating girl with a baseball bat introduces herself as Madame Mayonaka. Tomatsu asks if he can call her Mayo. Mayo tells him that he can't go back to his normal life again. Tomatsu doesn't care and takes her to buy her new clothes. After that night, Mayo tells Tomatsu about the bugged one. and they are bloodthirsty monsters who disturbs peace in Akiba, their city. She explains about their various types. The ones they fought before are cosplayers who went violent after becoming bugged ones. Most of the bugged ones are low-class types, taken over by demons called kurobugs. And there are those called the Hezoku, who can create stronger, high-class bugged ones. While talking, she sees Tomatsu and he's looking somewhere else and tells her that he's hungry. Mayo scolds him to listen to her and tells him that Hezoku are non-humans who have the power to create bugged ones. And Mayo is one of them. And some Hezuko seek to coexist with humans. She is one of them. She's fighting to protect this land. Her clan protected this land for over 300 years. Now Tomatsu is one of them. And he cannot leave Akihabara, the city. Tomatsu gets bored and leaves. Mayo stops him. He tries to run away to get a sandwich, but gets blocked by a shield. Mayo explains that the city is covered in shield magic, and the bugged ones cannot leave the city, and tells Tomatsu that he's her underling from now on, and his hair will glow when he fights the bugged ones. Then, his sister Nawaka and Arisa show up there. Mayo then decides to make him stay. She tells him to start his work right away and join the vigilante group, and if she finds him useless or lacking in his work, she will kick him out. Then, she drags him to clean his new room. Nawaka, his sister, wonders if Tomatsu is going to be alright. Suddenly, Tomatsu tells them that he has decided a team name for them and tells Mayo. She rejects it by saying, "It sucks." The vigilantes group shows up there and tells Mayo that they've been seeing them lately in all incidents in Akihabara, their city. And one of the vigilante group members asks Tomatsu if he's one of Mayo's group members. Tomatsu says yes by saying their team name as Electric Mayonnaise. Mayo gets mad and beats him for their new name, and they leave the place. The vigilante group leader tries to stop them. Arisa blocks her by acting cute. The leader gets impressed and says to the group to keep an eye on the Electric Mayonnaise. Mayo and the two go to the maid cafe. Tomatsu reads the online news. The news report questions how the cosplayers went wild yesterday. Mayo tells him that the bugged ones creating more allies using Kuro bugs to take over Akiba. Mayo remembers their organization name as Metrotica. Tomatsu asks Mayo about his salary for working as her underling. She tells him that they don't pay and tells him to get a normal job. He asks her how is she living without any expenses. Mayo explains that the professor gets funds for her new inventions and they barely pay rent with that. A maid girl approaches them and asks Tomatsu if he's looking for jobs and suggests a place. Arisa gets excited seeing the maid because she is a famous maid. They go to the suggested place and the girl worker gives her job list. Tomatsu and the others go to their first job place, an army gun shop. Suddenly, the bugged one monsters attacks the place and controls the humans. The army shop owner is the boss of the bugged ones. He fires the gun everywhere. Mayo, Tomatsu, and Arisa fight the Metrotica bugged ones, but their clothes begins to burn in the gunfire. They retreat and escapes from the place. The normal vigilante group comes again and questions about their situation. Mayo tells them about the bugged one. First they didn't believe the story and thinks that it's a rumor, but the bugged ones throws grenades at them. They run and teams up with Mayo, Tomatsu, and Arisa. They all fight the Metrotica bugged ones. Tomatsu removes the Metrotica boss's dress and defeats him. After that, he sees the normal humans who died by the Kurobugs. Mayo tells Tomatsu that he cannot go back to being a normal human again. And she asks sorry for not telling him that earlier. Tomatsu doesn't care about that anymore and tells her that he needs to get a job and make more money. Then we see a strange girl watching them defeating the Metrotic bugged ones. Subscribe.